So I wrote this last night with a few beers, so there's probably going to be some new information for me in this too. So everybody's going to be learning. If you guys don't know who I am, I'm Pete Kronberg. I ranch down by Forbes with my dad and my little brother. The old mustachioed man over here is my father. He knows about everything there is to know about sheep. So if you got a question about sheep, you should go to him. He knows what he's talking about. But a few years back, we started high density grazing. And we pretty much did this because we were tired of drought kicking our ass all the time. We saw the results, that other people had talked about using high density grazing and how much grass they were growing. And we wanted that because it's pretty hard to lose money if you got a lot of grass sitting around. But there's one of the things we didn't realize at the time is you kind of borrow a new set of challenges. They're different, but you still gotta have to manage for them. And one of them was nutrition. But this is a pretty awesome problem. I mean, we're talking about the driest year I've seen in my life, and we're talking about this grass being about this tall. And that was a dry year. But as you can see there, and that's not actually too bad in this picture, but we got a lot of mature grass here. We didn't graze most of this for another few weeks after that, so nutritional quality declined. And if you go move a set of animals in there, and they're getting less nutrition than what they need, it's going to cost you a lot of money. You're going to have health issues, you're going to lose weight, you're going to have a whole host of problems. And that's not something that's talked about. We talk about drought a lot, but we don't talk a lot about the nutritional side. And we talk about drought in relation to no rain. We don't talk a lot about severe weather and the money you can lose in those situations. Anyways, it's a good thing. I mean, if you got grass, it's a hell of a lot better than having nothing. That's going to cost you a lot of money. But it's a problem because of nutrition. So the real question is, how do you manage for it? How do you manage for these things? And it's pretty much the whole talk here. It's just a few things. The first step is you got to plan for it. It's going to happen. If you start moving often and getting some intensity in your grazing, you are going to have more grass than you had before. Be ready for it. So the ways to do that is, if you end up with more mature grass, one of the ways you can plan for that is speed up your rotation. You said you get back there before it gets all the way matured and it still has quality. Sometimes you're going to want to do that, sometimes you won't. The timing of it, maybe you want to graze that early in the year and then wait until next year to graze it again. Maybe it's warm season dominated and you want to graze it when the warm seasons are coming. Maybe it's cool season dominant, so you graze it when the cool seasons are good. But diversity is going to be every time. If you have a cool season grass that's too mature, the quality of that acre is going to go up if it's mid-July and you have a bunch of warm seasons in with it. So what they're getting is not just that crappy cool season grass at that point. And you can always supplement, and there's tons of ways to do that. Lick tubs, bales of alfalfa, whatever else, but you don't necessarily have to feed anything to supplement. But anyways, this is a mature grass this year. Picture's a little grainy, but this would be Canada wild rye and a bunch of intermediate wheatgrass. But right next to it, we got a big blue stem plant that's about my height. I'm gonna take a picture because it's pretty. And that was fantastic quality when this picture was taken. If I had a field that was 50% that, it wouldn't matter what time of year I grazed it. Because either the cool seasons would be good and the intermediates would be good, or the warm seasons would be good. So when we manage, I'm always shooting for, at this point in our operation, to get more of these cool seasons, or the warm seasons. And another thing you see in the background are these flowers. Any of your legumes and any of your forals, especially the longer season ones, they maintain their quality for a long time. They're not necessarily great, but they're probably better than an overly mature grass plant. Anyway, so one of the ways we do this is supplement, and we don't actually start a tractor to do this most of the time. So we take these real mature grass plants here, which is where that picture was taken. And the first year we did this was 2 summers ago, about the first week of August. And we had grass, they were a little taller than, about yay tall. But it was really mature, and I knew it was going to be a problem because I'd run into it before, where we just put sheep on a bunch of really crappy grass. And then pretty soon their nutritional plane declines, and then they get worms, and then you have a bunch of them die, and that's not any fun. So the idea we came up with this time is we were grazing here, and we moved them right into this. We used to graze in a tiny little area. And the first day we set up that pen, and then we chased them up here to this alfalfa patch. Let them sit there for an hour, made another little pen, chased them back. We grazed them about 1.2 acres a day, with about 1,000 head of sheep. But about an hour on the alfalfa, hour on. First day they came in here and they kind of selected a little bit, and they chomped a lot of stuff on the ground in this corner. We moved in the second day, they had a little bit of protein from the alfalfa. And they ate a little bit more. Third day of doing that, they just inhaled it. It went down. And we kept at that across that whole patch. And even though we were dealing with a really crappy plant, but a lot of it, we actually put weight on those animals. And without that alfalfa, we would have killed a lot of them. We lost a lot of money period. But that's one of the things you can run into with mature grass. And that's about what it looked like. Going reasonably mature alfalfa, the protein's good. You only need to bump them a couple percent, right? But then there's, when you start grazing, you can run into another problem, and that'd be washy grass. And you usually see it in rye, which we don't have any rye anymore. But when you get a real young grass plant, and you go in there and you're grazing it, which is not optimal to be grazing grass plants this tall, but you don't do it every spot, all the time, every year. But what you'll see is they'll eat that for a couple days, and then they'll start circling around looking for something else. And the rumen's really not built to just eat washy, high protein, high water grass. They need some roughage in there, right? So we saw that a few times, happen a few times in a few different spots. And what we started doing was we dropped something like a crappy old grass bale out there. And it only takes a little bit. They would, because they'd stop eating, and they'd just be looking for something else, and they would never get full. So we drop a bale out, they take a few mouthfuls, and then they turn right back around and start grazing again. They're happy. It's not great grazing, but it's a pretty easy way to solve the problem. But anyways, how you can get around that is pretty much the same as it was before. You know that problem's going to happen in the spring if you're going there. Be ready for it. If you can push the diversity a little bit, so you got more things for them to choose from, you're going to have less of a problem with that too. If you time it a little different, maybe you can just delay them a little so that grass has a little more chance to grow. You can supplement them like with a hay bale. Or you can plan for the next year, like in the fall, and you have a little regrowth there. Leave it until the next spring when that grass is going to be washy. That'll probably take care of your problem. So we live right east of the hills, and some of our ground is really, really good stuff. And we go a little east and it turns into alkaline, really, really bad alkaline. This isn't ours, but that's actually just white alkaline patches. And there's a lot of this ground around us. It's about 50% of that stuff turns white almost every summer. That's how bad that ground is. One thing I'll say about poor quality ground, you're never gonna do a lot of really impressive things on it. It's just not in the chemistry of the soil. It'll never happen. That doesn't mean you can't get something off of it. You can get a lot of grazing days off of it. You're probably not going to finish animals on it. But we deal with this in a few ways. When we plant, we use a lot in the winter. Then we can supplement them. It's pretty easy. They're around the yard. And then sometimes we just try to make it a little less of a problem. Soil health, anything you can do there. Feed out on it, improve that soil. Improve the nutrients it has, get it functioning a little better, is going to help. Again, with the diversity, the timing, and the supplementation. One of the other things we graze, we pretty well grazed everything. I mean, any kind of crop residue, any weeds, you name it, we've grazed it. But we have that patch of alfalfa, and we can't supplement all of that, so we do graze that once in a while. And as far as the grazing of that goes, I hate it. I hate it a lot. It's the biggest pain in the ass of anything. But we usually cut it. We usually get it to where it's blooming, cut it in front like about a day. Again, you can do some supplementation. That doesn't work real great, but it works a little. Add grass plants in it. That'll improve things with it. Another time when we need to focus on the nutrition of our management, especially in sheep, is breeding. If you can put a sheep on an increased nutritional plane, they will ovulate something like 20 to 40% more eggs. So you'll have about 20 to 40% more lambs, which makes a big difference in the amount of revenue you're going to generate. Cow guys, it really would be no different, except you're probably not going to get a lot of twins. But it's one of the things you should keep in mind. I remember there was a book, an old English book. It was made in like 1806, I think. And there was a guy talking about their grass over there, and someone was asking why they breed on the worst ground they have. And he said it's because they cannot finish any of their animals on that ground. It's too poor. The quality of the ground is too poor. And I wouldn't necessarily agree with that, but that even shows 200 years ago, they knew a lot about what was going on in the soil and what they could and couldn't do on it. Personally, I would breed on some of the better ground. After you breed, maybe then go to the poor ground. And then when you're finishing an animal, go to your best ground. This is a mistake we made the first year we grazed this. In June of 2014, I think. Anyway, so we brought them out in pasture, and I think we grazed just that, not like this. We grazed this way. We grazed all this off, and if you can look here, see all these white spots? That's just alkaline. It's just wet ground. And all this grass here. One thing we never thought at the time, this grass is garbage. It doesn't matter what you do with it. Wet, low ground grass. Swamp half the year. It's junk. And the mistake we made, we had water in this, with water in the creek, so we kind of stayed away from it. And we were grazing along, we grazed all this off, then the water disappeared. So we grazed back just on this. So they spent about a week and a half straight on that crappy grass. And they looked like hell when they came off there. Even though we were there every day, there was nothing we could do to stop that. So the only solution we came up with, and it worked pretty good, is we just graze across it. You don't spend a lot of time on there. But if you can hop on and off, they won't have days and days and days in a row of a really crappy nutritional plan. And you can spread that out a little bit. And if we can't do that, we just stay away from it, because you'll cause a lot of problems. Now, other than nutrition, the other one I've seen a lot of people take some serious ass kickings on would be severe weather. And partially from death loss. I mean, I guarantee pretty well everyone's here has lost a lot of animals from death loss before. At one time or another, you've lost some animals. And that's expensive. And if you can get rid of that just by making a different choice, that makes that choice pretty valuable. That management pretty valuable. But the secondary issues are probably the big ones. The pneumonia, everything you're treating, all that crap that you run into. So I started looking at this a little bit. The cattle and the sheep, as far as the critical temperatures go, on a cow in the summer or when it's wet, its critical temp is 59 degrees. In the winter, if you got a good healthy animal with a good coat, they say it's usually about 18. And the critical temp is every degree below that temperature, they're going to require more energy just to keep their body temp up. Sheep is a little lower if you got a decent fleece on. And I watch a lot of people deal with wind chill. You can't change the temperature outside, right? But you can sure as hell change the speed of the wind through windbreak or whatever else, just getting them out of the way. A couple years ago, I don't remember when that was, maybe 3 years ago, cold, wet, and rain. That's a killer. You know, it kills calves to be hell, but it'll really kill a freshly shorn sheep or a newborn lamb, just because they're small. They're small creatures and they lose their body heat a lot faster. But we had made a plan because we'd been through it before. We'd lost animals. So we made a plan, and we took them to a set of trees. Actually, I think I got a picture of that. But the reason it's so much of a killer, when you deal with effective temperature, and that's how they figure out a wind chill. If you got a 20-degree day and a 30-mile-an-hour wind, That's like a -10 degree day, or -10, -15, somewhere in there. It's colder now. But your cows are going to require about 25% more energy just to maintain their body temp. So this is one of the reasons why it matters. Besides the health issues, if you're trying to keep weight on your animals during the winter, and you have that 20-degree day with a 30-mile-an-hour wind chill and that 25% increase, and if you don't really want to sacrifice that 25% or that weight loss, even if you just look at it on a cost side, that 25%, if they actually can consume 25% more feed, that's like feeding, if you have 100 head of cows, and that happens for 10 days out of the winter, you just fed your cows for 2.5 days for nothing. Just because you didn't put them behind the windbreak. And so we plan for that a few different ways. Windbreak's a big one. You can change the feed quality a little. I'm not saying go feed them, but change what they're actually eating. And then bedding, I'm not going to get into that too much, don't matter a lot. This is one of the things that kind of surprised me. These weird lines down here, that's what happens when you can't choke the drill down enough. And I just left gaps everywhere. I was seeding about twice as much seed as I wanted to. So I just left gaps everywhere, and that's clover. And we never touched it. And it just got about yay big last year and went to seed, and we never came around and got it. But we were wintering out there, and every time the weather got bad, those sheep would just disappear. They just go hide in the clover on all that stubble. So when I see people, spraying their buckbrush off, that's insane. I mean, one, you're not going to accomplish anything doing it. Two, those bad weather days, that buckbrush is making you money. It's saving calves, it's saving your health issues. It really doesn't cost you anything. And I guarantee you on those bad days, if you got a buckbrush, your calves are going to be in that buckbrush. Almost never fail. Another thing we're trying to do a little bit, it didn't work out very well this year because we were pretty dry and ended up grazing it. It's just leaving some of that tall grass, just even if it's just strips of it around the fields. I'm going to try to do that a little more going forward. If you're trying to get a rate of gain out of an animal, you better start paying attention to the severe weather and nutrition side. So a few years ago when we got that miserable, it was 2.5 days, 2.5, 3 days. And we knew it was coming, and it was forecasted. It was about 35 degrees, wet, and the wind started blowing beat out. So we moved all our sheep into this little spot right here. And this just set of big old cottonwoods. This is, I think, June or late May. And anyways, at that time we had just shorn them, so they're pretty sensitive to wet and wind. I gotta get something to drink. Anyways, so they're pretty sensitive to wet and the wind. But we had a plan for it. We moved them into there and kind of just forgot about them. We couldn't do much. We don't have barns over there, we didn't have anything else, but we had the idea. Because that's actually how monarchs overwinter in Mexico. They go to this huge set of trees with a really good canopy, and you get an insect that manages to survive freezing temperatures. So we figured it might work for sheep. Anyways, our neighbors did not do that. They did, even though a lot of them had really good windbreak and that kind of stuff. There was a lot of people that just left the critters out, and most people in that time of year, they didn't have any stubble either. They didn't have buckbrush because they probably sprayed it off. So those cows were just out in the open. And there were people that lost 20 calves, just because they were stubborn. That's the only reason they lost those calves. So when you plan it, when we're grazing, doing our grazing plan, this is one thing I make sure I plan. This area here does not get touched until about July. Because if we get a bad weather event, we have to go there. Because it'll save us a bunch of money. And that's not hard to do. You just don't graze it. But other than that windbreak, And another thing people do, which a lot of people talk about today, is switching from calving in the cold. You get into June, it's pretty foolproof at that point. I don't know a lot about stopping the snow because I haven't seen much snow for a long time, but I'm pretty sure if you can stop the snow at least a bit and get rid of that ground blizzard, you'll probably have a lot less cows walking off on you. So a lot of that Atlas stuff, when you go across western South Dakota, what the hell is going to stop that snow? I mean, you're there to be lost for 100 miles in that kind of ground blizzard. So leave a little stubble. Put some windbreaks up, whatever you got to do. One of the other things we plan for when we do this is some things you can do today to fix the problem. Some things it takes a little time to do. This is one we're starting right now. We're planting this year. And that's just a shelter belt, right here. And the reason it's right in the middle is because then it does not matter where the wind is coming from. And it doesn't matter if it's in the middle of the year or in the middle of the winter. We'll be able to get around behind it. When it grows up, we'll be able to get in it. But like this shelter belt does nothing for us with south wind. Our entire place is okay in a north wind. It is useless in a south. And even though, you know, trees, even though they're going to take a while, they're pretty much your best option for a windbreak. Better to have it 10 years from now than, or 20 years from now than never. Anyways, our goal is pretty much this. Have so damn much grass that your biggest worry is how to use it all. That's my goal. It's pretty simple, pretty hard to screw up. But these are the moves I want people to actually use to get it. Increase your density, let your plants recover. Plant it. And once you're done planting it, implement your damn plan. But you're going to screw up, so fix problems. Then once you do that, you're going to be rolling cash, you're going to have grass everywhere. So be burying cash in your backyard, no doubt. And my old man, he always told me, a penny saved is worth two in the bush. So we're planting some bushes behind our house right now. It's going to work real well. Smart man. And then repeat it. And then repeat it.